Tzadi Daled, the 94th chapter of the book of Tehillim. El Nikamot Adonai, El Nikamot Hofia. God of vengeance, no Cain. God is the Lord of vengeance. Reveal yourself. Now, the Torah tells us, Lo tikom v'lo titor, tells us not to bear a grudge and not to take vengeance. Now, maybe God is allowed to take vengeance. Maybe we as humans can't. It doesn't really work with the idea of imitating God, but when the ideas in the Talmud and other places, great rabbis write about imitating God. And in the Gemara, it doesn't say imitate God and be vengeful. It says imitate God and be merciful. So here God is described as a God who is vengeful, which can be a difficult thing to think, or vengeance, and then revenge is not what we're supposed to take and not what we're supposed to do. But if the Jewish people have been decimated, as happens throughout our history, unfortunately too many times, we ask God to take revenge for us. Rise up, you judge of earth, and go and get these people who are geim, as to be. You have a lot of pride, you have a lot of self-esteem and whatnot, not necessarily a good way, and go and give them what they deserve. Ad matai rishaim Adonai, ad matai rishaim ya'alozu. How long will the wicked prosper? How long will the wicked rejoice? Yabiu, we're in verse 4, pasuk daled. Yabiu yidabru atak, yitamru kol poale oven. They speak arrogantly. All right, they're conceited, right? And this is their pride. Nothing happens to them. We've seen this many, many times in the book of Tehillim, where we're asking God to strike down the wicked with their haughtiness. We saw it 2 chapters ago, that they're like grass as opposed to the righteous, who are like the cedar, or like the date palm, and the grass, like weeds, will be just pulled out by God. Continuing in verse 5, they oppress your people. They come and to your nachala, to your inheritance, to your people, the Jewish people, they afflict them. Right, Inoi, like on Yom Kippur, Almana v'ger yaharogu v'tomim yiratsechu. And if you don't believe me, look at who they attack: the widow, the stranger, the orphan, the protected classes over and over again that are mentioned in the Torah, the people who you can't take advantage of, the people who society, who life is difficult for. Vayomru lo yireya v'lo yavin Elohei Yaakov. What do they say? God doesn't see, God isn't mindful, God can't discern it, God doesn't care. So here we have again, we've had many times, this wicked evil is all around, and God, it is time for you to do something about it. Continue in pasuk chet. Binu boarim ba'am uchsilim matai taskilu. Understands the boar. We had this word 2 chapters ago. The brutes among your people and the fools. When will you become wise? Right. So this is even amongst the Jewish people. We have people who are not acting properly. It's not just the non-Jews. Of course, we know that David himself is pursued by many Jews, by Shaul and his followers, and their rebellions against him, and there are people who curse him, and so he knows the difficulties at times of dealing with his own people. Anote ozen halo yishma im yotzer ayin halo yabi. So God is the one who's note ozen, which is a strange phrase. He planted the ear. So God is the planter of the ear. Halo yishma. You think that he cannot hear? God created us. He gave us ears. God probably can hear them. God is the one who formed the eye. Yotzer ayin. Halo yabi. Don't you think he will see? So you think, going back really into 7 and 8, these 2 verses, that the people, they say God can't see, God doesn't discern, God doesn't know what's going on. The wicked people, the brutes, the fools, they believe that nothing's going to happen to them. But David is saying, Shorer is saying, of course, God is the creator of the ear, he hears. God is the creator of the eye, he can see. God gives instruction to nations. God will also rebuke them. God is the one who gives man knowledge. Adonai yodea machshavot adam yehema havel. This is verse 11, pasuk Yud Aleph. And what does God know? God knows the thoughts of man. That man's thoughts are vain. That man's thoughts are are only for the momentary. That they're fleeting. That they're not things that can last for the long. So you think that you're going to outlast God? Do you think God doesn't hear? God doesn't listen? God's not paying attention? Well, you're wrong. And God knows our thoughts. God created us, so God understands us and the things that we are doing. And it's time for a change. Ashrei hagever asher tiasrena ya umi toratcha tilamdenu. So Ashrei, happy is the man, joyous the man who God gives some Yisurin to, who God punishes, who God, this is not giving somebody stage, I don't know, stage 5 pancreatic cancer. I don't know in pancreatic cancer if there's stages. I know, unfortunately, my father, as many others, passed away from pancreatic cancer, and it can be very, very quick. But the right Yisurin is a little bit of trouble in life, a little bit of problems, and sometimes you need a potch. You don't need to get beaten over the head, but you need a potch to get you back on the straight and narrow, something to wake you up in a sense from your slumber. And certainly this is what's being said here about the wicked. So it's saying, happy is the man who God gives a rebuke to, whom God teaches the law to. Lashkit lo mimera ad yikare l'rasha shachat. That God quiets him from his evil days until the pit is dug for the wicked. Right, so the righteous man accepts God, and he knows he suffers a little bit, and he knows that in the long run, the pit will be dug for the wicked. Right, the gallows for Mordechai are used for Haman. Eventually, the truth and goodness will prevail. The arc of justice is bending in the right way, etc., etc. Ki lo yitosh Adonai amo. Because God will not abandon his people. God will not forsake his inheritance. This is why the righteous man can trust in God, because the righteous man knows that ultimately, whether it be personal, whether it be national, we know that God will not forsake his inheritance, his people forever. And so it's going to happen. We're just waiting for it to happen. We're not waiting for it. We desire for it to happen sooner. Why are we waiting? Ki ad tzedek, we're verse 15, Tetvav, ki ad tzedek yashuv mishpat v'acharav kol yishrei leiv. Because judgment will come back, will return to the righteous, and all of the people who are yashar, who are straight, who are upright, will follow it. Mi yakum li im mireim, mi yityatsev li im poale oven. Who will rise up against those who are ra, those who do evil? Who stood up against those who are sinners, the poal? We had this word before, the workers of sin in a sense. Lulei Adonai ezratali kemat shachna duma nafshi. If God had not been helping me, my soul would be in the underworld. Right? God protect me when I stood up to wicked people. If God wasn't with me, I wouldn't be here anymore. Imamarti mata ragli chastecha Adonai yisadeni. Whenever I see my foot slipping, when things look difficult, when I'm going to fall, God's kindness supports me. Berov sharapai bikirbi tanchumecha yishashu nafshi. When my thoughts within me were many, right? I was worried. I had terrible thoughts. I was scared of things. What happens when my thoughts were then God's? God consoled me. He gave me nechama. So here we talk about a kisei, a chair. Will the seat of the wicked join you? Will he who makes mischief, he who makes trouble based on the law, will he join you? So right, this is we're talking about here that, are you going to protect the wicked? And when we've said that God should be protecting the righteous and not protecting the wicked, and people should move to the right path and act properly, and eventually those people, things will work out for them. Yagodu al nefesh sadik v'dam naki yarshiu. What's happened? They've gathered together groups against the righteous, and they condemn innocent blood, right? They're going to kill innocent blood, these wicked bands who are following their wicked leaders on their wicked thrones. But what's going to happen? By the far away from me. Vayihi Adonai li lemiskav ve'Elohai litzur machsi. But God will be my fortress. God will be my rock. So we have these wickedness all around, evil all around, but ultimately God will come back and will protect me. Vayashav aleihem et avonam uveratam yatzmitem Adonai Eloheinu. And then karma will happen. The iniquity, coming back to the Mordechai and Haman, the gallows that Haman prepares for Mordechai, Haman is hanged on. Right, the one who brought up what's going to happen is their own iniquity is going to be brought upon them, their sins, their cheating, their fraud. They'll be cut down because of their wickedness, and then it's sort of repeated. God will cut them off, and so we have another chapter we've had many times. The wicked and the wicked prosper, and they're everywhere, and we wait for you, God, to show us the true signs of reward and punishment, of the righteous being rewarded, of the wicked suffering. God, come back and help us. And of course, I think we probably mentioned in the past, mentioned it again, this is of course very reflective of a biblical theology where, right, in the second paragraph of Shema, for example, talks about that God, if you listen to God, then things will be good for you. Al ha'adama, in this ground, on this earth. But if you don't listen to God, then it won't rain, and you will quickly lose the land of Israel. That biblical theology of reward and punishment in this world is one that the rabbis in the Gemara move away from, because we see the wicked prospering. We've read Kushner, we know about why bad things happen to good people. It's the most important question of all questions in the world, outside of why were mosquitoes created. And there's a sense in Tehillim over and over again. It's not like today, where we're saying, God, you should be taking revenge. You should be cutting down the wicked, whether it be nationally against the enemies of the Jewish people, or whether it be personally against the enemies of David or other righteous people, which is sort of not the way that things run as much in the world today. Things run in the world today in a very different way. We say schar mitzvah b'hayal malek. That doesn't mean God is not involved in the world. God is involved in a more secretive fashion, but we don't see reward and punishment, justice being dispensed in the way that it is in the Bible, where somebody speaks lashon hara and they get tzarat, they get something like leprosy. That's not the way the world works today, and so it's, in a sense, these sort of chapters are somewhat distant from us, even though we certainly wait for the wicked to get their comeuppance.